What's good, people? Today, the topic of interest is two of the most common forms of resistance to your boundaries. So, this is a continuation from yesterday's video. So, in yesterday's video, we talked about the importance of boundaries and we talked about putting yourself first. Now, boundaries are a thing that will improve the quality of the relationships that you have a hundredfold. However, it's important to bear in mind that if you're a person who's never really set boundaries before and you're new to this, it's probably going to flip your world upside down. Like, because boundaries are just a litmus test to the quality of the relationships that you have in your life. So you're going to find out who's who. You're going to find out who's really, really loves you and who really has a genuine connection to you, and who are the takers, who are the manipulators. Once you start enforcing them, you're going to find out who's who. Okay, and it's important that when you begin to enforce boundaries, you bear in mind that this is the thing that's going to bring you your freedom, and it's important that you're prepared to fight for your freedom, because people will be prepared to fight to control you, to keep you under their manipulation. So I've highlighted two forms of manipulation, that you'll be able to see real quickly, and then you can stick to your guns and make sure that you don't fall back into those cycles of allowing people to use you. So let's begin. What's the first form of resistance to boundaries? The first form of resistance to boundaries is anger. So when you begin to tell somebody no, or you tell them, no, I can't do this, one of the most common things that people do is they will become angry. So some people will begin to shout, they'll yell, they'll be like, how could you do this to me? Why are you doing this? Why are you being so selfish? One thing to remember is that when people begin to get angry when you say no to them, you must remember that the problem is with that person. The problem is with the angry person. The problem is the person gets angry because they have a spirit of entitlement. They feel entitled to you. They perceive people as extensions of themselves. So when somebody says no to them, they're like, how dare they say no? And they have a mini tantrum. They have a little mini tantrum. I can't believe you've done this. Now, there can be the temptation, especially if you're new to boundaries or if you're not used to it, that when somebody gets angry, you want to placate them because you're thinking, oh no, if somebody's angry, I've got to respond to them. I've got to be like, no, don't worry, or I've got to yield to them. The most important thing is when somebody's angry, you must allow them to feel their anger. You must allow them to deal with it. So remember how we talked about we all have boundaries, how we all have things within the confines of our fence that we must take care of. Our emotional well-being is one of them, okay? And it comes down to anger as well. A person is responsible for their own anger. Anger is something that's not on you. Like, it's not something that can physically jump out and attack you. It's something that they're dealing with. It's something that they're feeling. And it's important that you don't rescue them from this feeling of anger. It's important you allow them to sit with that anger. Because when they sit with that anger, they'll learn. The problem is a lot of the time when somebody's angry and you go to placate them, what you're actually doing is you're rewarding that behavior. So they begin to think that, okay, in order for me to get what I want, all I gotta do is blow up and yell. And it stopped them from ever really being able to develop the capacity with themselves to deal with their own emotions, right? To take responsibility for themselves rather than relying and manipulating people to do what they want them to do. So that's what's going to bring about change in a person. So don't respond to the anger. You want to take a step back and you want to make sure that you remain calm. Things to consider, things that will help you out when you begin to do this. One, make sure you have a support system ready. Especially if it's, for example, this is a spouse that's been controlling you for a long time. You suddenly saying no, it's not going to be easy for you to continue to hold firm if you don't have a support group. So if you've got friends and you're telling them, listen, I'm going to be starting enforcing boundaries, or you get a therapist, or you get somebody to stand behind you to support you in that, to make sure that you don't go back to old patterns, that'll help you. So that's very important. Anger is one of them. So don't yield to people's anger. Remember, anger is something that they must deal with. When you allow them to sit with that anger and deal with it, they'll come to a point where they're able to change. They'll have a choice of either one, I'll change and I have to deal with things that the relationship will grow, or two, you realize that just a manipulator and the relationship will die. So that's the first form. Resistance is anger. The second form of resistance is guilt messages. So guilt messages are a form of manipulation. Now, bear in mind this: if guilt messages work on you, you got to remember that this is a you problem. So this is not necessarily, oh, it is a fault with the other person that they're being manipulative, but the fact that you're allowing yourself to be manipulated is a you problem, which just means that there's room for you to grow, and you can grow. So you don't beat yourself up about this. We're growing. We can learn. Now, I've highlighted some forms of guilt messages that you hear in people. So this is one that you hear. Like, you say no to somebody, or they want you to do something, and you say no, and they say, you know what? If it was me, I would have done it for you. Okay? Or they'll manipulate you and they say, like, after all I've done for you, you're gonna go and do this? How could you? Or you think that you think of others for once. That's a good one. Or if you're religious or you come from a religious background, this will be one. Aren't Christians supposed to be loving? Aren't Muslims supposed to be loving? The thing about guilt messages is guilt messages are really just covert anger and sadness. What the person is really doing is, rather than taking ownership for the feelings of sadness and hurt that they feel, for you making your own decisions, they're flipping it on you. So they're turning the tables on you to make you seem as if you're a bad person, to make you seem as if you're selfish, to make you seem as though you're in the wrong for not placating or what's the word, or accompanying, not accompanying, or playing to their needs, shall we say? Because you're not playing to their needs, and they're not taking, and they feel sad or hurt about it. They're not taking ownership for their sadness. Now, when somebody starts throwing guilt messages at you, this is the one thing to remember. You gotta recognize it for what it is. So when somebody says, "Oh, you know what? After all I've done for you, I can't believe you're doing this," rather than playing into that game or feeding into that guilt, what you can say is, "Oh, it sounds to me that you feel hurt when I go and do this. It sounds to me that you feel sad when I do this. It sounds to me that you feel angry when I make my own decisions." Okay? When you say something like that and you say it calmly, what's gonna happen is maybe the person will erupt and get angry, but then they'll begin to feel something, and it'll bring conscious awareness to them to realize that they have to deal with their own emotions first. I'll give you guys an example. There was one time I had a particular friend who used to rely on me for emotional support. So they'll ring me at random times. And I remember there was one particular time that I didn't answer. I was busy. And when I answered, they kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And when they answered, I was like, "Well, what's up?" And they're like, "How could you not be there for me? After all I've done to you, I've been a good friend for you, and you weren't there for me." And I was thinking, whoa, wait a minute. And I said to him, because I remember I've been learning about boundaries at this point. I said to him, "It sounds to me that you feel sad when I'm not available to help you out." And then the person was like, "Ah!" And I said, "Listen, I want to help you out. I am your friend, but sometimes I can't always be there for you. Sometimes I've got to take care of things. I was busy. I wasn't doing it purposely, right?" And when I said like that, of course, it didn't go down smoothly. Of course, the person was upset and they were mad. But the thing is, over time, as you begin to enforce these boundaries and you stick to your guns and you highlight and you don't play into that game of guilt messages, that person will begin to learn to have to placate themselves and deal with their own emotions. They won't be using you. They won't be using you as an emotional crutch. So guilt messages are a way that people will try and manipulate you. But you gotta remember, it's just covert sadness, covert anger. So they've got to deal with those emotions on themselves. So once again, if you keep playing into that, you're rewarding them for that particular behavior. And if you reward them, they'll continue to do those same things. So those are the two forms of manipulation that you see. So anger, you got to remember that anger is the problem of the person who's angry, and guilt messages. You got to remember the guilt message is just covert anger and sadness. So that's the video of the day. You guys take care, and I'll be back again tomorrow for the next one. Peace.